Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 109 of the Veterinary Behaviour Chat podcast. So I wanted to take the opportunity today to introduce you to my professional guides ebook, which launched literally at the beginning of this month. So 1st of November 2025, the professional guides ebook came out. And I just wanted to chat you through a little bit what it is, what's in there, how it might be able to help you, also who it's for, how you can use it, and just give you a bit of an overview. But also, I just want to make a huge shout out to anyone that wants something different or would like a different guide in the ebook. So I've come up with 12 guides so far of some of the things that I found so useful during my residency and that I still use pretty much on a daily basis during my behavior consultations. Whether it's just to sort of guide me in my thinking and allow me to sort of remember what it is that I'm trying to achieve, or whether it's helping me when I'm deciding whether I should medicate a patient or not, or which medication I might want to choose. They're just fantastic visual references to just have next to you in the consult room during a behavior consultation, whether you're a veterinary behaviorist or a non-veterinary behaviorist or somebody that's seeing cases. They're just such useful guides. And if you're a visual person like I am, then this will really help you. I've also got some checklists in there. I've also got a couple of specific guides that people have already asked me for. So I'm very responsive to requests from any of you that kind of say, gosh, this is something that I struggle with from time to time. I'd really love to have just a simple guide or a checklist to just have with me, or even to be able to go back to and just like look over or even look at before I go into a consult at times, that can just be really useful. Because let's face it, veterinary behavior medicine is not easy. It's always complex. There are so many things that we have to factor in. And if there are some guides or some cheat sheets or just some easy references for some of those things, it will definitely help us. And also, behavior consults are time consuming. So I found a lot of these things have helped me save so much time. I've got one guide in there also that I use a lot with my clients. So I have put this guide in the professional ebook because I have just found that kind of bringing out this particular guide and going through it with caregivers, with clients, has been such a valuable tool. But it could equally be a handout to give to caregivers when they go home, as just a visual representation of, hey, remember, this is our big picture. This is what we're always looking at, what we're wanting to achieve. This is our ultimate goal. This is where we're trying to get to. So I'm going to chat you through a little bit the different guides that I've got in here at the moment. But like I say, this is a lifetime access ebook. And similarly to my client handouts ebook, which has already been built upon every time a new handout is added to the client handouts ebook, or every time a guide is added to this professional guides ebook, you'll get an email with an update. You'll get the new version, and you can kind of go and download or print out the new guide that's been added. So currently, as it stands at time of launch, the professional guides ebook is 45 pages long and currently has 12 guides in there. And I'm going to just chat you through each individual guide and let you know what's in there. But over time, it's going to grow substantially. So my client handouts ebook, for example, now has 19 handouts in it. And that's also something that's grown over time. I just want to make absolutely sure that I create what you want. I've started off with a range of resources that I personally have found really helpful on my journey, but it might be that you have something else that you would really love to have and that I can create for you and put into this ebook. All right. So as mentioned, we've got 45 pages, 12 guides. Now, the first couple of guides I actually created on the back of requests from you guys, and they're really guides that are intended to be maybe also handouts that can be given to GP vets. So let's say, for example, you are a non-veterinary behaviorist, or you're somebody that's working a lot with behavior cases, and you rely perhaps on your GP vets to prescribe medications, or to be open to looking at physical disease causes for behavioral presentations, especially such as pain. I've made 2 guides that can absolutely be given to GP vets, that can be given to the caregiver to give to the GP vets. And the first one is just around psychopharmacology use in veterinary practice. So it's a guide that's intended to give a little bit of comfort or reassurance to general practitioner vets who maybe aren't that familiar with prescribing behavior medications and just want to know, actually, it's okay to use psychopharmacology. Here is, how long we've been using it for, how we've been using it. We've got so much research behind it, and they're really useful to hopefully be able to start building some of these bridges, because I know that one of the biggest frustrations many of you have is you recognize things such as pain, or there might be a GI issue going on here, or there might be a skin issue going on here. And you then send the caregiver perhaps to a GP vet, or you contact a GP vet and they're not open to receiving that information or acting on it or looking into it further. And I myself have had similar experiences. So I see a number of cases globally around the world. I am starting to work more and more now on referral from GP vets, because I think that's going to make the situation better. But I do have caregivers sometimes that come to me for help. And when I recommend something such as psychopharmacology, or perhaps a specific type of medication that I think would be really great for this pet, or maybe the pet has been tried on a specific medication like fluoxetine and it's just not helping, or it's not the right medication for that patient, and then I might prescribe something else, maybe sertraline, maybe paroxetine, maybe a tricyclic, maybe venlafaxine, then there has been resistance from the GP vet to prescribing those because they're not familiar with the medications. And that's okay. I get that. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to build that bridge between specialists, GP vets, allied professionals, the caregiver, to try and come up with the best treatment plan possible for that patient. So the first guide, as I say, is all about psychopharmacology in veterinary practice. And the second one is about pain and discomfort in behavior cases. So it's explaining a little bit why we are looking at pain and discomfort more, how pain and discomfort and behavior kind of overlap and intertwine. So it's quite a comprehensive guide as to why emotional state and pain or discomfort might be overlapped. And again, it's a guide that can build bridges either with the caregiver to give the caregiver more information, or build those bridges with perhaps GP vets asking them, hey, please look into this a little bit more. So those are the first 2 guides. The next 2 guides are my canine and feline circumplex of emotions. And this is the guide that I mentioned that can be really useful both for ourselves and for the caregivers, as being those kind of, hey, this is the big picture. This is what we're striving for. This is what we're aiming for. It might take us some time, but whatever we do, whatever strategy we apply, whatever is part of our treatment plan, we always want it to be causing this. And I've created a guide that gives you both the visual of the circumplex of canine and feline emotions, but also gives a description exactly how to use it, how to think about it. So gives you detailed instructions, both for yourself and for the caregivers, how to use this particular guide and this visual, and I hope will be really helpful. Next, we've got medication decision-making. So we've got at least 2 guides here about how to decide whether to medicate, whether a patient is actually going to be a suitable candidate for medications. And there's a checklist there, a separate guide, which is a checklist about all the things I, as a vet, want to be thinking about before I prescribe meds. And that goes into, I think there are like over 20 points on there that are just little kind of thought reminders that are like, have I considered this? Have I thought about this? Is this going to be a potential problem? Is this going to be dangerous for the patient? What medication interactions do I need to be thinking about? What contraindications do I need to be thinking about? How big is this patient? Is the medication going to be consistently available? So there are a number of different checkpoints that you can just go through one by one and think, okay, am I being safe? Am I being effective? Am I being safe? Am I being effective? Have I considered all the things I need to consider that are going to give me that comfort level and that confidence to say, yes, I've considered all of these things and I'm happy to prescribe medication, or I would recommend medication for this particular patient. So there are 2 guides there. One, as I mentioned, is this kind of quite detailed checklist, and another one is a slightly bigger picture view of Is this patient a suitable candidate for medication? Is medication something I should be considering? And again, I've given you detailed instructions on how to use the guide, how you need to be, or how I would recommend you think about things, what I found really useful in my residency, and now, even now when I'm seeing behavior cases as a specialist, of the things that I think about. The next one is, so the next group of guides are all about behavior signs, neurotransmitters, and medication choices. So there are a number of guides here. There are, I think, 4. Hang on, how many have we got so far? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 10. Yeah, that's right. So there are 4 guides that fall into this kind of bigger category. So the first one is all about behavior signs. So what does the patient present with? What are our behavior signs, essentially our clinical signs of behavior, and how do they correlate between different potential neurotransmitter imbalances in the brain? So that's the first guide. It's telling you, hey, this is the sign that I'm seeing in this patient, and this is potentially what's happening with the neurotransmitters in the brain. The next 2 guides are all about the specific neurotransmitters. So we've got GABA glutamate, and then we've got our monoamine neurotransmitters, which are dopamine, serotonin, and noradrenaline. So we've got separate guides for those 2 groups of neurotransmitters. And then you've got some Venn diagrams that are showing you what behavioral signs might be related to, again, in a different way, which neurotransmitter. And then I've also got which medications might fall into these categories. So these Venn diagrams are literally the things I have next to me during every consultation. I look at the patient, I might look at my Venn diagrams, and I might think, I probably need to be affecting serotonin for this particular patient, or I might need to be affecting serotonin and GABA, or in another patient, I might need to be affecting glutamate and noradrenaline, or maybe serotonin and noradrenaline together, right? And that's really going to guide my medication choices. And if you listen to last week's episode where I talked a little bit about SSRIs and tricyclic antidepressants, what are the similarities and the differences, you'll have heard me talk a little bit about, in some patients, I might want to affect both serotonin and noradrenaline. So what are the medications I'm going to choose there? So if you missed that episode, perhaps go back and have a listen. That's going to give you a bit of an idea of how some of that theory then is translated into some of these guides. So you've got 4 guides all about, so you've got 3 guides about neurotransmitters and signs and maybe medication choices. And then you've got 1 guide, which is all about long-acting versus short-acting meds. In which situations do I choose the one? In which situations do I choose the other? And again, there are always the actual guides, A4-page guides that you can print out to have next to you. You can laminate them. You can just have them there. You can, share them with caregivers if you think that's appropriate. And then there's always my detailed explanation on how to use the guides. And then the final 2 guides, again, I created as requests from clients or from professionals that reached out to me saying, hey, can't you design a guide on this specific thing? So the first one is a guide about clonidine, because I think clonidine is one of those medications that GP vets are not yet really familiar with, but as behaviorists, behavior specialists, veterinary behaviorists, people working in the behavior space, clonidine is a medication that we're actually seeing as being super useful. And, we might recommend it, and then the GP vets are like, oh, I don't know what this is. I don't feel comfortable prescribing that. So I've created a whole guide just on clonidine to provide confidence and comfort to GP vets on prescribing it and using it. And then my final one is something that I've been asked for a couple of times over the years now. And I always thought I must do some kind of a guide or a resource on this. And now was the perfect time to do that. And that is psychopharmaceutical medication choices for fireworks, storms, and other big acute noise events. And so I give you my kind of rationale in what medication to choose for which pet, for which kind of presenting sign. And it's obviously very timely. I know fireworks season is in full swing. I know we've had the 5th of November if you're in the UK, but wherever you are in the world, we're running up to New Year's Eve now. In some countries, we'll be seeing more thunderstorms. So, I mean, this is a guide that's kind of useful all year round, but is perhaps particularly useful in this kind of Halloween, Guy Fawkes or bonfire night in the UK, certainly New Year's Eve, wherever you are in the world, and maybe those kind of storm seasons. Now, sometimes that's in the summer in some areas of the world, sometimes it might be in the winter. This guide is particularly, as I've mentioned, in the guide for acute noise events, right? It's not for those patients that are perhaps suffering from noise sensitivity on a daily basis to household noises or everyday life kind of noises. That's a different scenario. This is particularly for those acute, somewhat predictable events where we can choose event medications, short-acting medications to help those patients. And I've talked about the licensed medications that we have for those situations and some of the unlicensed medications that we could still use in these situations. And I've given you the references and the papers that support each individual medication choice in these situations. So I hope that that's going to be super useful. Like I say, I think it's a timely resource, but it's something that can be used all year round. So that's a little bit of an overview of the current launch format of this ebook. But as I mentioned, and if you have already purchased the client handouts ebook, you'll have seen that I've created new resources literally all the time. So it's going to be something that is ever growing, ever evolving. And the beautiful thing about it is that you can have an input into what's in the guide. So if that's something that you're keen to do, please let us know. You can contact me on email. I'm going to give you an email address in the show notes that you can send any requests to. You can, of course, put requests directly in the show notes in the comment section underneath the podcast episode. You can reach us on social media. You can either direct or private message me on Facebook or on Instagram. So, you can reach us in so many different ways. If you're in our Facebook group, the Veterinary Behavior Community, you can just write me something in there. In fact, that's exactly how 2 of these resources were created. Somebody messaged me on LinkedIn and asked me about one of them. So there are so many different ways you can reach me. And you can also, if you're connected to me via LinkedIn, you can message me there. So yeah, just find me. Join the Veterinary Behavior Community. You can post in there. That's a great Facebook group anyway, with lots and lots of additional behavior resources. So I will put the links to all of these different social media channels and our email address. And of course, I will be putting the link to the ebook itself, the Professional Guides ebook. Now, when you click on that link, it's going to take you to a page that has both of my ebooks on it. It has the Client Handouts ebook and it has the Professional Guides ebook. You can buy one, you can buy the other, or you can buy both of them combined in a bundle at a discounted price. So you can get one, the other, or both as you would like to. And yeah, that's it. So I hope you enjoy the ebook. I had so much fun putting it together. Ben and I both did, actually. It was such a great exercise, and it really got me thinking about what are the things that have been so useful for me during the residency as I was learning this, but also now still in my everyday behavior practice. But I'm always so grateful when suggestions come in from you, from everybody that's working in this space, because it means that I can actually design something that you need, you want, and hopefully you will use as a result of that. All right, that's it for today. I will see you next week in episode 110, where I'm going to be focusing and deep diving on clomipramine. See you there. Bye for now.